This is part 5 of putting it all together. In the last video, part 4, you learned how to delete a record out of a table, and you learned how to write a post delete route. And remember, the post says it doesn't build the data, the parameters in the URL. It just sends the data to the request, the HTTP request, which your route then can use, and then as parameters it can pull data out of there also in your route. So let's go ahead and learn how to add a record. The first thing we need to do is we need to create an HTML form or an EJS file that allows us to add a student. So let's do File, New File, and File, Save As, and make sure that you're saving that in the Views folder. So we're in our Views folder, and we're going to call this file Add Student. Add student.ejs. Make sure you put EJS. Click Save, and then we're going to use the following HTML in that file. So let's take a look at the HTML. I just put in that add student EJS file, and if you notice, I've got a little problem here. I need to make sure I rename my file to just be EJS. So I'm going to do that first, and I just did that by expanding my Explorer and right mouse clicking on that file, and I did a rename and I wiped off the .text. So I'm going to go ahead and push that back. Take a look at this code. We have our doc type, HTML opening head. There's the closing of our head right there. There's our HTML tag, closing tag. There's our head section, our body section. In the head section, I just have a title and I have a style sheet. I really don't even need that. I don't have a style sheet built. I'll get rid of that, make it even simpler. We have our title. In the body, I have a form tag. This form tag says that if I ever try to post, I'm going to go find a route called Add Student. Within this form, I have a label, enter the first name, an input called first name of type text, a label for last name, an input called last name of type text, a label for receive emails, and an input called email, and I made that a checkbox, and I said that it's automatically checked. And then I have a submit button. So if you ever click on this submit button, it's going to go up and find the action method add student in the server and a method called post. So now what we need to do is come over to our server file, our index.js, and we need to write our action methods. We're going to need an action method for the get so that we can display that empty form, and then we'll need an action method for the post so we can pull the data off of the form and store the data. So let's first do our get. The get's pretty easy. We just simply say app dot, because that's our express object. So app.get, and if they ever try to go to the add student route, so in the URL they type /add student, we're going to receive the request, generate a response, and we're actually going to do the response, render the addStudent.ejs file. And so that will go out and actually find our addStudent.ejs and display it. That's what the get's going to do, displays it. So now let's go write our post. So here's our app post, which says if they've ever gone to the add student page and they click on the submit button and they call a post method with the action add student, it will come out to this code and execute. And it says, yes, I do have a route called add student. I received the request and the response. And remember, we're using the request because that's what comes from the form. The response is what we generate. So we say, go to connect, go to the student table, insert a brand new record, and then we say, take all the data from the request and submit the body of that data, and then send the result back to student and redirect to the home page. Now this is going to seem a little weird, so let's go ahead and save this and run it. Let's go back to Node, and we'll run the Node Express or Node.js. And I just realized I left off a curly brace. So right here, we need to add that. That curly brace goes there, and that parenthesis goes there, and that curly brace goes there, and that parenthesis matches there. Now we have all of our code ready. Let's go back to the terminal, new terminal. Let's run our node. It's now listening. Come back to here, and we'll go ahead and go live, even though we're not going to be at the right page. If we did our local host 3000, there's our get. Now let's do a /add student. Case doesn't matter. Enter. Here's our new student page. It looks wonderful, so that we didn't spend any time making it look pretty. And let's add a new record. Let's add Mickey Mouse, and we'll say Mickey Mouse wants to receive emails. So click Save. And notice we add our brand new record. In this case, we said receive email. We have a Y rather than the actual email. And so that's something that you're going to have to do in your code. And you could write JavaScript to say, what type of values do you want to limit? And maybe we could actually go edit that record a little bit later, which will lead us to the next video. So how did this actually happen? Let's go take a look over here. We'll stop that. I want to show you what's going on in these request bodies. So I went and added two consoles. I did a console.log req body. Remember request? That's what we received from the HTML form. And I want to show you the body. And we can do this because of that body parser library we brought in earlier. And then I want to show you the request.body.firstName. And we're going to see that it's not case sensitive. We could use anything we want there. And if I actually started to type something in and request.body, notice we don't see the values there, so that's not going to help you. So you're just going to have to know what you need to type in. So we'll save this, and so let's go look at it one more time and see what happens when we run this. Let's go ahead and go to a new terminal, start Node again, go back to go live, and we'll go to our local host, and we'll go to our add student, and let's add another student there. We'll add Donald Duck, and we're going to uncheck that. We'll click Save. Adds Donald Duck. Now let's go back and look at our console and see what's happening. So here's the first one. It says Donald Duck, and that's what the body is saying. It's giving you the entire body. So that whole body is acting like JSON, where we say here's the attribute for the object and here's the value. Here's the attribute, here's the value for it. And in this case, we didn't have a value associated with email. Let's go run it one more time and see what happens. Let's do one more time /add student, and let's add Minnie Mouse, and we'll leave it checked this time. Click Save, and come back one more time and look at Node, and notice this time, since there's a value there, that attribute actually shows up. So now we're seeing email has a value of Y that we're working with. And we can actually code that in our JavaScript and say, hey, if it's this value, do something else. We'll see that when we do an update. So that's what this console with the req body doing. Now let's take a look at first name. We said it wasn't case sensitive, but it says undefined. We're going to see how this actually works when we do our update, and whether or not this console.log, when we do the request body first name, even does anything, if it works or if it always defined. But that's how we add our student, is we have a get and a post method, and in our get, that's the one that displays the data and grabs the form and displays it, and then when we click submit, it calls the post method, finds the add student route, takes the body from the form and inserts that into the student table, and then just redirects back to the home page.